I decided today was a good day to work on talking about primary source analysis. It's Sunday, and I took the day off talking to people. Just kidding. Yesterday I had a show. It was a good show. Not as many people came as I would have loved, but sometimes that's just how things go in the music world. And I've been working on how to improve business, and I've been meeting with I mentioned this in my previous video, meeting with a group of creative entrepreneurs to discuss ways to be more successful. Anyway, that's a tangent, and that's not what we're talking about today. I'm a history teacher. I'm a social science teacher. I've taught AP Government, AP US History, AP European History, and then junior high Utah, honors Utah Studies, regular Utah History, US History, and World History. And Latinos in Action, which was a really cool leadership class that I was able to be a part of. And I've also been a special ed teacher, paraprofessional. So that's why I have the interests and the knowledge that I have. And one of the strategies that I taught in every one of my classes was how to analyze primary sources. And I wasn't always the best at it in the younger. It's harder with the younger grades, the 7th and 8th grade classes. Kids don't. They have a harder time engaging with it, but with the AP kids, it was a requirement. I mean, it was literally part of the test. If you ever took an AP test, you'll know. Analyzing primary source documents was a big piece of the whole. It's what social science is all about. Being able to interpret data that's otherwise difficult to interpret because it's human data, and human data is complicated. And so, as a program, we would use different. Hold on. Jeez, Chester, stop, Chester. It's just his leash was too tight. Go ahead. Different resources to teach teenagers how to analyze primary sources, and I tried to use it with all of the kids, not just the AP kids, because it's an important skill. And I'm realizing, of course, who isn't realizing that adults have long been bad at social science. And why is that? Well, because it's been taught badly for a long time, and you can Google this. You do not have to just trust me on this, but purposefully underfunded. And I say purposefully because I'm interpreting intent there, but I think the data shows it. But definitely that social science education in the United States specifically, I can't speak to other nations, but has been handicapped on purpose, in my opinion. But handicapped nonetheless. Lack of funding, what's the word I'm trying to look for? I'm very tired. It was late. We played till midnight. I was very tired as it was. Anyway, the making social science less important, and you can see the comparison because they've been hyping STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, which is fine. But at the detriment, why can't we have both, of social science and language arts? And so I was always the best at language arts and social science. Breeze. It's a little breezy. You watch Chester chew a pine cone. Anyway. It is kind of a lovely day. Look at this sky. It's a perfect day talking about how to get smarter in learning how people talk. So I wanted to share, and at some point I'll figure out how to post this. I just found a commonly used chart, and there's different acronyms, so this may not be the one you learned if you learned this. It's just, I like it because it's HAPPY, HAPPY, document analysis. And the acronym is just, they all do the same thing. They're just all trying to get you to look at the different pieces of a primary source to understand what it actually means, because you can't take what people say at face value, because people lie, people get things wrong or incorrect, people are biased, people are flawed in beautiful and complicated ways. He always acts so put upon when I lean on him. Stay here, Bubby. Somebody's walking by. And so you need to be able to look at what people say with a critical lens and understand better what it is that's happening when people say things. Anyway, it's a bit of a breeze, but I hope it's not too windy. So I'm going to read what this means. HAPPY. H stands for historical context. When and where was the source created? What important events were happening at the time? How might that affect its meaning? Put the primary source in its proper context. Did 9/11 just happen? Okay, if you look at the way people talk and the actions that people took after 9/11, 2001, it's going to be significantly different from September 11th, 1999, or 1980, or even 2025, you know? Where were you on September 11th, 2025? It's a weird question to ask, right? It doesn't have context. I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of fucked up shit going on right now too, but understanding what's going on around the thing that is being said or analyzed, this can apply to graphs, like data that was collected at the time, or newspaper articles, which primary, secondary, you can argue it's semantics, but what's going on when that thing was written, said, or data collected, or map drawn, or whatever. A primary source can be a lot of different kind of things, and I can go through that next if you'd like. Okay, so that's H. A, audience. Well, who was this source originally created for, and how might that affect its meaning? So let's take two political speeches. Let's just say we have a political speech for a candidate who you would consider liberal or democratic, and they're speaking to other liberals, Democrats, whatever, in 2010. Let's say, how are they going to be addressing that audience versus if they were giving a speech to a crowd full of Republicans? Or how would a Republican candidate speak to fellow Republicans versus speaking to a crowd of Democrats? I mean, I use these because and in 2010, I don't know why I gave that date. I don't know what was going on in 2010. I got married the first time in 2010, and that was a fucking mistake because I was only 23. And he was a manipulative cunt. But, a lot of things were going on in 2010 that I didn't pay attention to because I thought I was getting married to somebody who loved me, and I was dealing with other things at the time, and I was in my own little world. So maybe if I was going to go back to 2010 to reading a speech that was made back then, I would need to go and check out historical context because I wouldn't necessarily automatically know. Makes sense. And even though I was there, it's not like I'd remember. So I'd need to do some research. And who's the audience really affects the way that a person speaks. Let's talk about let's talk about how Donald Trump spoke to that crowd on January 6, 2021, that led to the inciting of the invasion of the national capital. Hi, happy boy. Speaking of being happy, this a happy boy. That's a happy boy. Anyway, back to our document analysis. Hey, stop scratching that ear. That's how you get an infection. I love you. Knock it off. That audience was full of people who were already pretty radically minded and pretty willing to do violence. And they hurt people and even led to the deaths of some people. And they've been pardoned by that same guy who incited them to said violence. And isn't that interesting? You can disagree with me all you want, but the facts are the facts. Facts don't care about your feelings. Anyway, and I'm a historian. I purposefully keep a long memory. It's what the history thing is all about. It's because human memory is short, and the only way we remember things is through our good oral or written histories. Anyway, so consider audience. Who was that document, that moment, that event, that collection of data, that speech, whatever? Who was that created for? Photograph. Who was the painting created for? Primary sources can be so many different things. Manifest destiny. Okay, if you're familiar with this topic, it's the concept that basically justified American colonialism across the continent, westward expansion, right? And there was this really famous painting that I cannot remember the fucking title of, but I think it had something to do with Manifest Destiny. Anyway, and it's got that Spirit of America person flying, holding the telegraph line, and behind her, like eastward, is the evidence of technology of the East, like the white technology, trains and steamboats and the telegraph that she's carrying and blah, blah, blah. And there's pioneers, okay, because this is the 1800s, and wagons and whatnot. Hey, baby girl. Hi, baby. And on the west side, it literally is shadowed. I'm going to go find the title of this so I can share it with you in the description. But the painter literally put shadow on depictions of Native American people running away from westward expansion, and the buffalo are also running away. And if you know anything about what colonial white Americans did to the buffalo, you will be very sad. Don't look it up. Do look it up. You should know these things. Anyway, there's a reason why a lot of animal species in North America almost went extinct during American colonization of white settlers. Anyway, back to the document. So we got H, historical context, A, audience, and now the first P is purpose. For what purpose was the source created? What was its own? I think that was cut off. Why was that thing, excuse me, created? Why was that Manifest Destiny painting created? It was a marketing piece. It was propaganda. It was literally there to encourage westward expansion. Did you know that in colonization it is very common? Look throughout the entire history of the globe. One of the first things that happens is the governing or colonizing body will send out pioneers, settlers, to go out and either make friends with the locals or just like get into fights with the indigenous populations, which is what happened most of the time, in order to do the bloody work for the colonizers. And they would always send, look it up, they would always send people with less power. They would send farmers, they would send poor people, they would send immigrants, and there's a I got distracted. There's a man walking by with a top hat and a three-piece suit. I'm not going to show him because I respect his privacy. But he tipped his hat at me, and that was really cute. Anyway. Oh, live in a weird town in a good way. Anyway. So the purpose of that painting was to glorify American expansion so that people with less power would go and do the bloody work of the people with more power, because this is what usually happens. Who dies in war? Who dies in settlement? Come on, guys. Colonizers don't kill themselves. They kill the people they think are expendable. Anyway, so what was the purpose of the event, the speech, the painting, the photograph, the movie, the TikTok? This is applicable to any type of source, okay? What was the purpose of... Let me think of a good one. What was the purpose of that speech that got Jimmy Kimmel kicked off of losing his fucking contract and then getting it back again? Like, what was the purpose of him making that speech in the first place? What do you think was his purpose there? Or what could it have been? I bet somebody like that would actually tell you if you asked. But anyway. Next P, point of view. Who created the source? What opinions do they have that should be considered? This is incredibly significantly important, and this is something that people forget far too fucking often. What is the point of view of the person, the human being involved in the creation of this source? And why would that have something to do with? I already mentioned this. We're talking about bias. We're talking about, it's the same thing as why they would choose the audience that they're working with, or who their audience might be if it's a Republican speaking to other Republicans versus a Republican speaking to Democrats versus Donald Trump speaking to the entire country and saying that anti-fascism is a terrorist organization. What's the point of view of Donald Trump in this situation? Why would he say it? We know anti-fascism isn't really a movement. It's not an organization. It's not a, like, Black Lives Matter, the BLM movement had leadership, had organization, and I don't, personally, I'm going to tell you my opinion because that's why I came onto this fucking YouTube channel instead of teaching in real life. BLM was not the fucking problem. And it's been well documented that the violence during those BLM protests was pretty much almost always consistently somebody who wasn't part of that organization who came in to fuck shit up, to make BLM look bad, or to take advantage of the situation. That being said, that's an organization. Why would Donald Trump, the President of the United States, declare war against an ideology? When else have we seen that, by the way? Think about it. When else have you seen war declared against an ideology? I'm locking my dogs in because there's a puppy walking by. It's a cute puppy. Hi, baby. Anyway. Shh, hush. Hold on. Chester's on his bullshit. That is the cutest little tiny little, I want to say Pomeranian. You're so cute, honey. You're just the cutest little thing. Don't even worry about it. These guys are assholes. Don't worry about it. Anyway. Anyway. So, what is the point of view of the person you are considering? What would be the reason why they would create it, as in their internal motivation? And yes, this is why behavioral science is so complex, and it's why I fucking love it. What is the function of that behavior? What is the function of this creation of this source, this document, this photograph, this video, this whatever? What's my point of view? I'll tell you my point of view. I made a lot of videos about kind of my past and where I've come from, at least little snippets. But you're welcome to ask me anything. I'm an open book when it comes. I think that transparency in education, you should know my point of view so that you know how to factor it into the content I'm trying to share with you. I would consider myself an independent. I'm neither a Republican nor a Democrat, and I'm registered as an independent. I consider myself a progressive. I don't consider myself a leftist or a rightist or whatever. I consider myself a centrist. I believe that what we are experiencing is society goes through pendulum-like swings of behavior that often, when they swing very ferociously, this is how things go. And I say right and left, whatever. But what it ends up doing is it's really more like I can't do it, man. But it's like it more creates like a circle when it swings too far. The more extreme the swing, the more extreme the swing back. And so I consider that the best place for us to be is somewhere firmly planted in the middle. And I mean that we aren't even close to the middle right now. We are far, the United States specifically, I'm speaking of where I'm from, but globally, from what I'm noticing, we have been significantly right, as it were, as an ideology, and we can go into what that means and why it means that and how long it's meant that in another video, but we've been that way for a very long time. Very fucking long time. Far longer than we've been progressive or left or whatever. But that we do experience extreme swings. What are you looking at now? That's okay, we're almost done with the video. Let me finish my video. Anyway. And so that's my point of view. I believe I've been on both sides, the progressive side, the leftist side, and the right side, the conservative side, whatever. I've spent time, I was raised conservative by very conservative people, but I was also raised by a very kind and empathetic mother, and that side of the family is very much more open-minded and much more progressive, and so we've all kind of shifted on that from that side of the family and gotten, doesn't matter. So like I've experienced everything, and I've studied the entire history of humanity. I've studied. I was a history education major. They don't let you specialize when you're a history education major. You have to do breadth, not depth, which I appreciate, because now I know a little bit about everything, and not every historian has that background. And it lets me put everything into a very, very long historical context. Hold on. So that's kind of my point of view, and now you've had a chance to understand my primary sources, which are my weird, fucked up speeches about things that I believe in, I guess. Here's the last one, the why, the letter Y in the word happy. We have historical context, audience, purpose, point of view, and the letter Y, which represents the word why, W-H-Y. How does the document impact or shape or reflect popular arguments on the subject? How does the document reflect continuity or change over time? What are the limitations of the document? This why, and again, this is just one handout, a tool that teachers can use. So it can be a little messy, but understand the why of the thing that you're studying or analyzing. Why? Where does it fit in the why was it made? Who was it made for? All of this stuff all together. But where does it fit in the broad context of the topic you're studying? Okay, so let's take for some reason I just keep thinking of Sesame Street. Let's take an episode of Sesame Street from like the 1970s, is that when it started? And how that show, each episode was created with people of color as major characters, with Muppets who represented different colors, shapes, and sizes, and experiences. With it's a neighborhood. Who are the people in your neighborhood? In your neighborhood. There's a fucking source. There's a song from Sesame Street that was written at the beginning of the series. What was an episode of the Sesame Street, the original show? doing at the time. It was literally rebellious. Okay, it was part of the civil rights movement. It was part of the getting access to kids of color, to education, to kids in poverty, to educational resources that parents who have, we have always had parents who've had to, both parents had to work a job. This is not a new thing of recent eras. We have just expanded the poor class. We have destroyed the middle class, at least in the United States, but I'm pretty sure this is a global experience. So what's the fucking purpose, right? It's the Sesame Street was literally created to get education to disenfranchised people. Literacy is an incredibly liberating skill. And if you look at the data, we have never had a fully literate human population. And I'm excluding people with learning disabilities who may never be able to have traditional literacy. Literacy in general is also the ability to understand. It can be read to you. Audiobooks count as literacy. I mean, it's just the ability to understand and disseminate information. But we're usually talking about writing. Writing is power. Reading and writing is power. And stop pulling on me. We'll get up in a second. So what is the purpose of Sesame Street from the early days and forever afterwards? And what's the purpose of trying to get rid of it now? Sesame Street enfranchised people who didn't have good access to education. Because if you think that the United States ever stopped segregating their education, then you need to learn de facto versus de jure. DE space FACTO, de facto, versus DE space JURO. But it's either by fact or by law. And by law, segregation ended, but by fact, segregation never did. So Sesame Street was a rebellious TV show. It was a part of the civil rights movement. It was, the Black Panthers created like community kitchens. Why were you ever taught that they were bad? And I say you, general you, but because I was. I was taught the Black Panthers were bad. They aren't. They weren't. And all of this is to say, put into context and audience and find the purpose and the point of view of the creation of every document, everything, piece of media, literature, art, whatever you engage in, because what you'll find in the why is a lot of what we see is propaganda. A lot of what we're given is either propaganda or progress. And it's not black and white either. There's usually a little bit of everything mixed in. I want you to take time and find something to analyze, and then tell me what you learned. I'll put the document in here somewhere. I'll put a link to it somewhere, so you can look up your own too. Just look up primary source analysis, resources, worksheets, things like that, and you can practice it yourself. Stop being so easily confused and swayed by the things that you are taught by people you believe you should trust. Even if a person is worthy of your trust doesn't mean they don't fuck up, because humans are fallible. Anyway, that's a long enough video. I'll talk to you next time. Get smarter, people.